tonight. But some of you might have something you want to add about her. Some,
Oh dear.
but we're all just really, and I'm not going to ask Johnny. But it's so good to see so many of your home friends.
I know, it is. It is.
Yeah, home friends and family here. So I'm just not going to say anything else, Gloria. Some things are better left unsaid.
Okay, we've got 34 people here.
It has been that long. This one over here, Linda Shackelford Hughes and I were just out riding the hills like we did as kids and all that, and we decided we'd stop and walk around at this old graveyard that's above my house. Now some of you I know, like Johnny, knows where this cemetery is. It's been there all my life. It hadn't moved, hadn't changed, and I wasn't interested in it, and then I was interested in it. So as I go along with my slide presentation, I want you to, I hope it works. Gee, let's see. Come on.
Walk down an old dirt road just to pass the time. The autumn breeze through the trees seemed to ease my mind. Suddenly my feet were stopped, a presence I could feel. I was standing at an old graveyard at the top of a hill. The withered stones of forgotten lives, most were simple and plain. As I walked around, I became aware they all had the same last name. A family plot from long ago was right in front of me. Then something caught my eye, hidden in the trees. Through briars and weeds I made my way, and leaves of golden brown. Soon I was standing at an old headstone that was jutting from the ground. A forgotten grave hidden far away, just whose could it be? I brushed away the years of dirt and saw the name Lucy. Oh Lucy, did your dreams fall through? Did they say you were to blame? While sitting on their church pews, did they scorn your name? So many questions I could ask, but you are not around. I guess the secrets of the past will stay buried in the ground. Some say she met an older man who left her life in Tennessee. He won her heart and took her hand. There were whispers of bigamy. So many questions haunted me, and they're unanswered still. Why were you banished, Lucy dear, to the bottom of the hill? Oh Lucy, did your dreams fall through? Did they say you were to blame? While sitting on their church pews, did they scorn your name? So many questions I could ask, but you were not around. I guess the secret of the past will stay buried in the ground. I took a walk down an old dirt road just to pass the time. The autumn breeze through the trees seemed to ease my mind.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is that when you're doing genealogy or historical research, you need to collaborate with people. You need documents and letters to prove things. Remember algebra and geometry and trig and all those things where you had to prove something? You need to prove your genealogy and piece it together with history, which is what I've tried to do here. And there's still a lot that I don't know. Memories, don't discount those. Those are good. But sometimes people's memories are not exactly correct. especially if it's hearsay, it's been told from one person to the next. Use your common sense, you know, to get where you want to go. History, sometimes it's a puzzle. Genealogy is definitely a puzzle. We may know who we are, we think, and then maybe we're not. I can remember when my husband and I decided to get into genealogy, and by the way, he wanted to get into genealogy because he wanted to prove that he had ancestors in the Civil War and was looking for ancestors in the Revolutionary War, that type thing. So we got into genealogy groups and started history groups and started going down to the Alamo, and he reenacted down there, and I put on a big foo-foo skirt and went with him, you know, to these things. But you have to, when you're doing genealogy, you have to be willing to accept what you find. You can question it, and DNA is one of those things that, oh my goodness, I was told all my life I was a Native American. Oh heck no, I'm not. DNA said, nope, you're not, you don't have any Native American. But anyway, I mentioned everything is a puzzle in genealogy. And I mentioned collaboration. These are cousins of, this guy on the left, James, is a cousin of mine that I did not know. But when I saw on Ancestry.com that here's two people that are standing by the sign at Nethery Cemetery, I sent him a message and said, who are you? Because I don't know who you are. And it turned out that his grandfather, who was a half brother to my great grandmother, had gone to Texas and had gotten killed out there, and his family never came back to Mississippi, Alabama. But he had always heard about it, and when he got older and made a little bit of money and stuff, he decided to come to Monroe County and ended up at the Nethery Cemetery. So we got to talking, and after Linda and I had been up to the cemetery, we decided it was in disarray. It needed some work. So we thought we would just arrange a cleanup crew, and she volunteered her family, I volunteered some of mine, and James sent me a check. He said, I can't come help you do this, but I'll send you a check, and he did. He sent me money, and he said, pay for your gas, and I said, I don't need you to do that. And he said, well, buy something for the cemetery. So we did. We bought cleaning supplies and different things. He also, I don't know if you can see this or not, but my connection to the Nethery Cemetery, as far as I knew, was Martha Nichols. She was my grandfather's grandmother. And that's all I knew about that. I didn't know how everybody was connected. I didn't know who Lucy was at the foot of the hill or any of that. But in looking at documents, I guess I wanted to prove that my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents were married, but on the Evans side, Martha Nichols married the Evans that Barbara was talking about, and he died. He died getting too hot and heat stroke, I suppose, many years ago. And then his wife, who became, of course, a widow, she married someone else, and they're both buried at that cemetery. I take very seriously documenting everything. This is an 1880 census, and it shows Martha Evans. It looks like Evant almost up there, but you can't discount things like that. I know that's who that is. Zula, Z-U-L-A, was my great-grandmother. And the other names that are on this chart tell me who, well, her mother and her father are all listed below. They live close together. So that was one of my proofs that I had of a connection there. That's Martha Rebecca Evans, again, and she married Mr. T.G. Nethery. It looks to me like she married him in Lamar County, the Justice of the Peace. And this is just a slide from part of my Ancestry.com, and we've got Martha Nichols, who married a Thomas Nethery that I just talked about. But then here's that name, Lucy Camp. And Lucy Camp married a John Nethery, and that, remember, that's the Nethery Cemetery that we have there. And John Nethery, he's that man from Tennessee that Linda's song is talking about. Now, James, out in Texas, was very interested in the Netherys because he didn't know any of that side of the family. And when he and I connected because of DNA, his mother was still alive, and he badly wanted her to meet somebody from her daddy's family. And that never happened because she got sick, and I just didn't meet them. But I made a little notation, and you can. How many of you use Ancestry.com or anything like that? You can notate all kinds of things. And I've notated that he had multiple spouses. But I didn't know that. I did not know that at all from the records that I could find. In fact, the first record that I found of him, and Johnny, I don't know who Martin Tate and all those people were, but that would have been in kind of that same area there where I grew up and where Mr. Levi and everybody lived. But John Nethery first showed up in a census in 1850 in Mississippi. And he's living apparently with the Tates, or the Tates are living with him. Don't know if they were kin or not. There's a whole lot I still have to learn about these people. But what I did find out was in the let me back up one. Pay attention, John Nethery, he's 40, looks like he's 40 years old. He's a farmer. His real estate's worth $100. His birthplace is Pennsylvania. That's in 1850. This one is Lucy Camp from 1870, and she is living with John Nethery. And they have kids. They're all listed as Camps on this census. They are not married, I suppose. And what I had heard from relatives was that Lucy was buried below the hill because she had lived with a man and had kids with him and was not married to him. So she was buried below the hill. Makes sense? I accepted that. I told Linda that's what happened. But notice where John Nethery is from. He's from New York. But the other census had said he was from Pennsylvania. So I was a little confused, and my cousin out in Texas had kind of pointed that out to me, and that's the 1880 census that says that Lucy's she's now not Nethery, but Netherly. And I don't know if any of you are kin to Netherys or Netherleys that are here tonight, but if you are, you're probably kin to this person. Okay. Now here's John Nethery again, and that doesn't tell me where he is. I'm assuming that's after Lucy died. But I kind of wanted to know who was John Nethery. I mean, who was he? I know who Lucy Camp was. You know, she was she was a Camp. My mother was a Camp. So I thought, okay, who was John Nethery? As Linda's song said, he was an older man. He was a good bit older than Lucy. He was an older man who swept Lucy off her feet. He was educated. On the census, it tells you that he is educated. And Lucy wasn't. The census records indicate that she is illiterate. So I suspect this country girl that's illiterate was probably kind of smitten with this guy who was a traveler. I don't know if she knew at first that he had left a family in Tennessee or not. But my cousin James, who had done all this research, looked around, a lot of papers and stuff, and he said he found court records where he was sued by his mother-in-law in Tennessee, not Pennsylvania, not New York, but Tennessee, for trying to take property away from her after her husband died. He was a father, and he was maybe a scoundrel. As James said, you hate to talk bad about somebody, but he might have been. I don't know that for sure, but it's sort of, things kind of point that way. And that's a picture that I found on Ancestry. It's very blurry and all, but I don't know if that's John Nethery or not. But that kind of gives you an idea of maybe what he looked like. Now, who was Lucy Kemp? She was the daughter of Daniel Boone Kemp and Mary Crenshaw. Don't know if those names ring any bells to you or not. She was an illiterate. She was a woman who was in love with an older man with a past. And she was a daughter who defied her father for love. I had heard in family lore that Mr. Nethery had kind of, and there are letters that James had shared with me, my cousin out in Texas. He had shared with me where people had written and said, okay, he really kind of just stole her away and kind of swindled her dad out of some property. But anyway, she had to have been an independent spirit, you know, to have been willing in those times to take those risks and do what she did. She was a mother, and maybe she was a woman shamed. Linda and I talked about, you know, how she would have lived, you know, and in scorn with her kids and all, how the kids must have felt. I don't know what Lucy looked like, but I do know what my mother looked like and what some of her cousins looked like. So this is maybe, you know, some similarity. Now I told you, and this is one of the things that I'm talking about, collaboration. Genealogy and history goes hand in hand. And I think that we need to preserve history. And we need to know as much about our genealogy as we can. Make it as accurate and pass it down and all. So that work day that we planned, I had a couple from Texas that came out. They helped me. And Linda volunteered her grandson. And neighbor down the road, I don't know if anybody knows Joe Camp or not, but that's Mr. Joe Camp. There was some trees and things on that cemetery, and so he came up and he cut those trees up, made short work of that. And then there's Jacob, her grandson, weed eating around that cemetery, making everything look really nice and pretty. And there's Joe and Terry Tyler, Joe Camp and Terry Tyler. That had broken off. That tombstone had broken off. They set it up. And it's interesting about that, but well, I'll tell you that story later. Anyway, they set that up, and then after we had cleaned it up, of course it looked a little bit better. Now, this board, it's kind of like an information board that I got the idea out in Texas from some of the cemeteries. And what that is a door that you can open and put information and stuff in. My plans, which has been 2 years and I haven't done it yet because I live in Texas, coming back and forth here. But I got Mr. Dan Chisholm from Smithville, from Amory now, and his son Danny, and James bought the materials for all this, and Mr. Dan put it up, built it, put it up. So I have that up there by Nethery Cemetery so that we can put information in it. And I wanted a mailbox. So we put a mailbox. There is a mailbox over there by Danny. And what I did is kind of wrote a story and put it in a little notebook and put it inside that mailbox. And I asked people that come there to visit, to sign their name. You know, so we can see how many people actually came to that cemetery. There hasn't been anybody buried in that cemetery since 1940s, I don't think. And it's just up there with timber companies that have bought all the property around it, and you hardly know it's there. There used to be a wooden sign on the side of the road that with an arrow that pointed up the hill, but it's not there anymore. But anyway, we did that, and I had to throw something in there about my great-grandmother, but I already told you about that. We also went to, I think it was the dollar store, and bought flowers and put a flower on each one of the graves so that it would be, you know, nice for people that came up there. The interesting thing is that I got a phone call one day. Somebody was just frantic wanting to talk to me, and the last name was Pickle, and they're from over around Pontotoc. Now, I'm out in Texas, and I'm thinking, I don't know any Pickles from Pontotoc, Mississippi, but anyway, they were so excited because they go, I think it's every first Sunday in May or second Sunday in May, and they've been cleaning that cemetery up for years. And so when they found my mailbox and my information there and read that whole story, they had to talk to me. And they were so excited that we had cleaned it up, and they straightened it up a little bit and felt really good about that. The other thing that we did is that we, and James again bought this, we put well, sometimes it's straight, a little picket fence. We put a little picket fence around Lucy's grave. Now, one of the things that we did do, my friend Judy and I decided by using the little water wands or whatever you call to find a grave, and we found another grave down there beside or close to Lucy. Well, if I go back and read some records, help me out, Barbara, who was Evans, Mr. Evans over at Aberdeen that inventoried all the cemeteries.
Dr. Evans.
Yes, Dr. Evans. Anyway, in his roster of who's buried there, he says that Gar Irvin's mother is buried there. Gar Irvin's mother was, I guess it would be grandmother really, was kin and was Lucy's daughter. So everything just kind of fits together. Those puzzle pieces that I talked about. Now, Lucy is what got us interested in that cemetery. I'm 71 years old. I was not interested in that cemetery. The only thing I knew about that cemetery is that some of my older relatives, a lot, you know, my age then, would come by the house and enlist everybody they could to go up there and clean that cemetery up. So I just really didn't think much about that cemetery until now. Anyway, you can see the little white picket fence, or you could from the road when we first did this. Now, I found this picture, and I got to thinking, I got back to Texas, and after Linda had written this song and sent it to me, and I was working on this presentation, I remembered something that my grandpa Jep Camp had said about a cemetery that they had started burying people on a lower level, kind of down the hill, across from their house. And they buried a couple of people there, and then they stopped burying people there because when it rained, it would try to wash the graves away. I got to thinking, and I thought, you know, I bet you he was talking about that cemetery. And even though family lore, not something my grandpa had told me, but something a cousin had told me about Lucy being buried where she was because of what she had done or not done, as in living with Mr. Nethery. And I knew where the old house place was, and there was an old well. Johnny, you might remember, you know, an old well that was out across that road from the cemetery. So I found this little illustration online and said, that makes sense to me. This is where the common sense kind of comes in. And I thought, now what in the world, if it was a family cemetery and the names are all connected, so many Netheries, why would they leave somebody out? Why would they do that? And I don't believe they did. Gloria doesn't believe that they did. Gloria thinks that they started burying in one place and that was not a good place, so they moved the cemetery for the rest of the people. Oh, John's buried at the top of the hill. Don't know why he'd be up there and her down here. But anyway, that's what I think. But when you are doing your research, whether it's genealogy or history, whatever, don't discount collaboration with everybody that you know. Everybody in here's probably got an opinion or an idea about just what I've just been talking about, and maybe it's sparked an interest in something that you're doing and looking at. Maybe you're thinking, well, if that happened there, then maybe something else. Don't throw away your documents. Don't throw away all the letters and things that people wrote. Keep those things, and because it might come in handy sometimes to be able to put things back together. Memories. If you've got memories of people, write them down, because your kids or your grandkids may be interested. And then use common sense.
I took a walk down an old dirt road just to pass the time. The autumn breeze through the trees seemed to ease my mind.
Okay, thank y'all very much for your attention.
It's an honor to be here. I've enjoyed it so much. Y'all been so friendly, and I appreciate that. This is my newest one, and I have to have the words. So I'm gonna try to look at these words and these eyes on, but it's called I'm a Memory. And thank goodness for memories. What if we didn't have any memories? I mean, I was raised in Shake Rag, if y'all know where Shake Rag is, and I can just think just like that, and I can just see my mama in that backyard and around that old washing machine, and I can smell the fire around her wash pot, and Daddy over piddling in his little old shed. Love memories. I love old memories a lot. So I'm gonna try this. Like I said, it's my newest one, but I hope you enjoy it. I'm a picture of a little church where Mama used to pray. Behind it there's a graveyard where my grandparents were laid. I'm a bill of sale for an old car Daddy bought in '51. Wasn't much to look at, but boy, that thing could run. I'm a memory of another place, another year. Sometimes I make you laugh, sometimes I bring a tear. That's a faded picture of my dog Sarge. I remember when he died. We buried him in our backyard. I was 16 and I still cried. I'm an old man in overalls, standing in the field. Now this hand working the land just to pay his bills. I'm a memory of another place, another year. Sometimes I make you laugh, sometimes I bring a tear. A class ring from long ago when she was full of dreams. A Sears and Roebuck guitar